this meeting to order for the MPO Policy Committee. Introductions first, and I'll go to my left.
Penny Githens in as proxy for Julie Thomas.
Sarah Ryder-Band for the CAC.
Andrew Seaborg serving as proxy for Mayor Thompson.
Matt Flaherty, Bloomington Common Council.
Lisa Ridge, Monroe County Highway Department.
Monroe County Council.
Morris, President of the Monroe County Plan Commission.
Doug Horn, Bloomington Public Transit Corporation Board of Directors.
And do we have anybody online? If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Chris Ballman, NDOT.
I'm Erin Grishad with Burdison Medical.
Is that it? Okay. Then we have approval of minutes for February 9th, 2024.
Move we approve minutes.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments, questions? Seeing any online? Roll call, please.
Yes.
Flaherty,
Yes.
Horn,
Yes.
Wallman,
Yes.
McKim,
Yes.
Morris, Ridge,
Yes.
Ryder-Band, Githens, Seaborg. Motion passes.
To approve agenda for this afternoon's meeting.
Second.
Thank you for catching that. I just saw that. We have a motion and a second for approval of the meeting agenda. Do we have any questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Flaherty,
Yes.
Horn,
Yes.
Wallman,
Yes.
McKim,
Yes.
Morris, Ridge,
Yes.
Ryder-Band, Githens, Seaborg, Bannock.
Yes.
Motion passes.
I'm not, I don't know technically if they have to be seen to vote, but we're not seeing any visual.
His camera turned on when he voted on my end, so I can make sure everyone sees that. Sorry.
No, you're fine. So communications from the chair and the vice chair. The only thing I'd like to announce is we are having a Fullerton Pike public meeting on March 25th at 5 p.m. at the Bachelor Cafeteria. We will have plans distributed. We will have our the awarded contractor of Milestone in attendance. We will have our design team for questions and answers, timelines, contact information, so we can get that project started. It's anticipated to start April 1st. Sarah, do you have anything? Moving on, reports from the MPO staff. Item A.
Don't we need committees?
Pardon me?
Committees. TAC.
Oh, I'm
CAC.
sorry.
That's
Gosh,
okay.
I can't read today. Reports from officers and/or committees. Sarah from the CAC?
Yes. The CAC met on the 28th of February. We have an agenda much like what we will see today. And once again, as happens almost every year, when brought forth with the state's proposal for targets, we disagree with having targets for deaths on our highways. And we also recognize the necessity in terms of federal funding to set those targets and to be underneath those targets and not to exceed them. So while we voted to approve that proposal from NDOT, we also have a proviso that indeed we do not support any deaths. We are in favor of Vision Zero and don't want to see highway fatalities. Thank you.
And then I have an update from the Technical Advisory Committee. Since Public Works was not able to join, Nate Nichols is the chair for TAC. The statement is, the TAC passed an amendment to the NDOT Safety Target Declaration stating that fatalities and serious injuries that result from crashes on public streets should be prevented. The TAC believes that zero fatalities and zero serious injuries is a more appropriate goal or target for NDOT and Indiana's MPOs to pursue. However, the TAC understands that NDOT's safety target declaration numbers are intended to convey only an incremental change towards safer streets and not an ultimate goal. Furthermore, the TAC understands that these safety performance targets primarily affect distribution of federal funding, would not be used to justify fatal or serious injury crashes as acceptable. As such, the TAC approved adoption of the NDOT safety performance targets at their meeting last week.
Thank you, Rachel. Questions? Going to item 6, reports from MPO staff. Item A.
Item A is the BMC MPO 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan Status Report. We have Aaron Grushin here from Burgess and Nyepel to give a presentation and an update. Aaron, I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you. So I was just going to share a little bit of information about where we are in this process. I have some slides prepared. Let's see. Okay. So, as Rachel introduced me, so I'm Aaron Grushin, and I'm a transportation planner with Burgess and Nyepel. And we are the prime consultant helping to update the long-range transportation plan. We also have Foursquare, ITP, and tool design on our consulting team. And we have been working closely with the MPO as well, the city, the county, and the state DOT. So we held a kickoff meeting that included all of these entities in January. And now we are moving forward, and I'll kind of just go through a little bit of background information. Most of you are probably familiar with what a Metropolitan Transportation Plan is, so I'll keep this pretty brief, but just in case there's anyone who doesn't know, it is required by federal legislation. Every MPO has to develop and adopt a long-range transportation plan that is multimodal, considers all users of the transportation system, and looks out at least 20 years into the future. Yes.
It seems like we're having a little bit of technical difficulties in council chambers, and we're having a hard time hearing you.
Oh, okay.
It's loud enough, it's just very muddled.
It's muddled, you said?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
We're going to grab our ITS staff to see if we can resolve the issue quickly.
I'm grateful for the caption.
Okay, I can also, let me make sure that it's pulling from the right audio setting. Apologies. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for a minute because I'm trying to figure out if I can change my audio settings. Okay, is that any better? I am so sorry. I have a decent microphone, and for whatever reason, my Zoom settings must have defaulted back to my laptop, which is terrible for audio. So that was my bad. Thank you for letting me know. I will try to make sure to check those defaults now every time before the meeting, just to make sure that they're going to the right place. So let me open up the presentation again, and it will go from there. Okay.
Just so everybody's on the same page, do we need Erin to restart, or is everyone okay with the slide she presented?
I'm happy.
Be restarted, thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to start at the beginning. I wasn't that far in, so that's the good news. And it's not a really long presentation, so that's the other good news. But I'm Erin Grushon. I'm a transportation planner with Burgess and Nightbull, and the consultant project manager for the update of the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. In addition to Burgess and Nightbull, we also have Foursquare ITP and Tool Design Group on our consulting team. And then we're working closely, obviously, with the MPO, the city, the county, Indiana DOT. We held a kickoff meeting with all of these entities in January. And right now we are moving forward on conducting our existing conditions analysis. So I wanted to provide just a real quick background. Most of you are probably already familiar, but in case there's anyone who's not, I want to make sure we're all on the same page. Metropolitan Transportation Plan is something that is required by federal legislation. All MPOs have to prepare a long-range transportation plan that considers all modes, all system users, and looks out at least 20 years into the future. So that is what we're working with you all to develop for the Bloomington region. A big part of this process is going to be stakeholder and public engagement. So that includes, regular updates with this committee as well as with the TAC and the CAC. We also are going to be forming focus groups to dive in and get some more targeted input on topics related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, active transportation, and transit. And then we're going to have 3 in-person public meetings. The first one, it will actually be next month, April 3rd, Wednesday, April 3rd. So we'll be sending information out to everybody. We'll be there at the City Council building. And so that's going to be really exciting for us to kind of kick off the project more publicly, let people know what we're doing, get information and feedback from them. And then we'll have another public meeting, I believe, in the summer, and then a third in November when we have a draft plan ready for public review. We're also going to be conducting an online public survey. The plan is to launch that before the April 3rd public meeting and then keep it open for a couple weeks afterwards so we can promote that at the public meeting as well. And then obviously we will summarize all of the engagement activities that go into this process. I mentioned we're in the process of developing our existing conditions summary right now. So as part of that, we've been, reviewing the previous MTP as well as the statewide long-range plan, and then other relevant transportation related planning and plans and studies. So there's a benefit of having Foursquare and Tool on our team, and that both have been really involved in the transportation planning for the community. So we're able to pull from their previous work and make sure that we're being consistent with the planning work that's already been done. We're also, collecting and analyzing census data, population characteristic information, also transportation system data, and then we'll present everything in an existing conditions summary. And that'll lead into kind of identifying where needs, gaps, issues are. Once we have an understanding of, what the baseline is, where we are currently, and we hear from the public and from stakeholders on, what priorities and goals are, we can start to see where are the gaps and what are the needs that could be addressed. And so that'll include,
considering those previous plans of studies, as well as the input we hear from you all, but then also any technical analysis related to the transportation system data that we collect. So that could include looking at things like congestion or safety hotspots, that sort of thing. So we'll take that information, and one of the other things I should mention about the MTP and the federal legislation is that it is required to be a fiscally constrained plan. So we have to look at work with the MPO and the state and city and county to determine, what the projected funding availability would be, so that when we start to identify projects and develop cost estimates, we can prioritize those within the known funding that would be out there for the duration of the long range plan. And in addition to infrastructure projects, we can include other types of recommendations around planning strategies, that sort of thing. And another part of this, the federal requirements, is to have this be a performance-based planning process. This was alluded to, earlier in today's meeting with the adoption of the safety performance measures. So this is part of that federal performance-based planning process, where we would look at what the adopted targets for the region are for the different required measurement areas, and provide, usually it's just like a summary report that says, here's what the targets are, and here's where the region is currently, just to show the status. And also tying these performance-based planning measurements into, along with goals to tie those together with how projects are reviewed, evaluated, and prioritized as a piece of this performance-based planning as well. And then, we'll develop an implementation plan that includes information about priority projects, so that to help kind of move them forward. And that, we'll work with you all to determine if you're interested in what level of detail you would want, if it would just be like the first 5 years you would want more detailed descriptions, like with these project cut sheets, or for the entire fiscally constrained plan. But, this is just a table showing how we broke out the estimated funding availability and what the project costs would be for each of the implementation phases, to show that fiscal constraint had been met. And we will pull that all together into a plan document. The draft is anticipated to be ready by November of this year, and then we would finalize that early next year, after a 30-day public review. So I think that is all I have. There's my contact information if you would like to reach me, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Erin.
Yep.
Any questions from the board? Doesn't appear to be. Thank you for that presentation, and we look forward to seeing you.
Thank you.
Next item is urban area boundary based on 2020 census status report.
So late February, Federal Highway Administration and NDOT had a meeting to discuss all of the MPO's urban areas or urban area boundaries, and determine whether the exceptions were going to be passed. All of the exceptions to remove some areas were denied from what we know. We haven't received a final answer from NDOT or Federal Highway at this point, so we are still unsure of what that boundary is.
Seeing no questions. Moving on to old business. Seeing none. New business, fiscal year 2024 to 2028 TIP amendment.
So this would be DES number 2101774, the I-69 wrong way signage with LED lights at the intersection of I-69 and Fullerton Pike, and the intersection of I-69 and State Road 45/West Bloomfield Road. The request is to increase $89,398 in NHS funding for fiscal year 2024, and to also update the DES number. So the old DES number is, again, 2101774, and the request to change to a new DES number, which would be 2400027. Any questions on that?
Just to pose a question, did the TAC and CAC review this application?
Yes,
And what was their recommendation?
they both recommended approval.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Chris on this? And Chris, did you want to add anything to this TIP amendment, or are you okay with the way it's presented?
I'm okay.
Number 2101774, the wrong way signage with LED lights at I-69 at Fullerton Pike and I-69 and State Route 45 West Bloomfield. And do we need to also do statewide wrong way signage? Is that correct? The DES number 240027.
So that would just be one motion. So
Okay.
it would be, it's the same project, they just would like to update the DES
Okay,
number.
just checking. And I will also move approval of DES number 240027 unless anyone has an objection and needs to see those two separately.
We have a motion and a second. Do you have any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, roll call vote, please. Oh, pardon?
Public comment.
Oh, gosh, I'm just totally.
Not that they're,
Do we have any public comment? Seeing none, vote, please.
Horn?
Yes.
Wallman?
Yes.
McKim?
yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Ridge?
Yes.
Ryderband?
Yes,
Githens?
Yes.
Seaboard?
Yes.
Bannock?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item B, the draft fiscal year 2025-2026 Unified Planning Work Program.
Planning Work Program is our contract with the our contact with the Indiana Department of Transportation for grant funds through the Federal Highway Administration and also the Federal Transit Administration. We have a new cycle here of fiscal year 25-26. First thing I wanted to do was point to the planning emphasis areas, which is Bates page number 20 in your packet. Planning emphasis areas this year, for this coming fiscal year, are institutionalizing equity, accessibility, and safety, maximizing coordination, and then the metropolitan planning area, urbanized area boundaries. And you can see underneath each of those headings, we've detailed how we will address this planning emphasis area with various elements of the work program itself. In terms of the budget, our budget is up 5.8% this year over last year. That's the good news. The bad news is inflation ate away 5% of that automatically. So essentially, we're at a very flat budget. Going to Bates page number 26, where it shows the federal-local breakout. You can see there that the funds that we anticipate for fiscal year 25 are $360,418, requiring a matching fund of $90,105. Therefore, our total budget will be $450,523. Our areas of where we're spending our money actually come into focus here. with administration and public participation, which is what we do here in each one of these meetings, and our interface with the local public itself. Short range, well, we have data collection and analysis. This is traffic data collection. Short range planning and management systems, that's our transportation improvement program. Long range planning is our Metropolitan Transportation Plan. And then complete streets set aside, we have a requirement here where we're required to set aside a certain percentage of our funding for complete streets. And then other planning and special projects includes Title VI initiatives where we review those every year. Current purchase orders, we have a purchase order open for $249,000, but that doesn't include any of the costs that we've incurred for this third fiscal year quarter and the fourth fiscal year quarter, which is upcoming. Since we have a Metropolitan Transportation Plan underway, we anticipate this entire balance will be expended before the end of the fiscal year. I don't know if any questions. I mean, we have contract service agreements here. We have contract service agreement with the City of Bloomington Public Works Department. This is for pavement asset management. We have a similar contract service agreement with the Monroe County Highway Department, again, for pavement asset management. Those budgets are essentially flat from what they were currently. Town of Ellettsville, we have nothing allocated to them in the future year. Bloomington Transit, I'm sorry. Okay, the mouse has gone wild. Bloomington Transit, we have $43,000 allocated for Bloomington Transit, and that is for their, what I would call the feasibility study for looking at land for future land appraisal, I'm sorry, for right-of-way appraisals, and then also for land acquisition, where they anticipate in the next couple of years purchasing land for a new maintenance and administration building. Here we are, Bloomington Transit, $53,000 is what we have programmed in the current year and also in next year. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
This is more of a process question. This is not a voting item?
No, this is a draft. I should have told you from the very beginning. We put this out for a 30-day public comment period. The advertised public comment period began on February 23rd. Comment period ends on March 23rd. It's currently under review by the Federal Highway Administration, Federal Transit Administration, and NDOT. We will receive a formal letter from them commenting on the document within the next 2 weeks or so. And then we'll also have to answer, we'll be required to answer all of the public comments that we've had. To date, we've had no public comments on the work program whatsoever. And then we will come to you, the Policy Committee, April 12th for final adoption. But prior to that, we'll go to the Technical Advisory Committee and Citizens Advisory Committee for their recommendations before coming here for a final approval. Once the Policy Committee approves the document in April, hopefully in April, then we'll go to a contracting process with the Indiana Department of Transportation and have a notice to proceed by July 1st.
Yeah, I guess I want to talk about the public emphasis areas. And I realize these are set by the federal government, and we have no control over that. I'm delighted that we're looking at equity as an important element of what we're doing, as well as accessibility and safety. Dynamite first idea. Great emphasis area, and so is maximizing coordination. And while it's really about our maximizing our coordination with the state and federal government, I hope that we will see a maximization of coordination not only between the city and county, which I have great hope for, but also between plan commissions and transportation The building that's gone on in this area, in the city and the county, has not always taken our transportation network and the burden into effect, and hasn't noticed that indeed we can build very quickly up, but we can't necessarily expand the transportation network necessary to move the thousands of people we're trying to move into certain building areas. So I'm hoping maximizing coordination will have a greater effect. The one I have an issue with that I'm not quite sure, I understand in many areas the planning area and urbanized area boundaries may have changed considerably with the new census. Here, all we've done is potentially been asked to take in some very underpopulated areas that aren't really attached so much to our urbanized area, and how we're actually going to serve that, or how we're actually, I see we're going to address it through element 401, but I can't see where this would be a huge emphasis area for us. Can you help me understand how we are really going to meet this objective?
From a long-range planning
Yes,
standpoint, that's
yes.
well, we don't know. I mean, this is going to be the great question here. In terms of the urbanized area boundaries, I mean, we have two small fringe areas, Sanders and Smithville. Sanders and Smithville are supposedly to be included in our urbanized area, and they never have been before. And they would, I mean, we would characterize those as rural areas. But the Census Bureau, for their purposes, has determined it to probably be a part of the urbanized area. So therefore, we would have to look at, in terms of the roadway connectivity to the corridors itself, in terms of whether that would have service from, say, Bloomington Transit. It's possible, because Bloomington Transit has been exploring countywide. They've been encouraged to do countywide transportation access. How that goes about, I don't know. How's that paid for, I don't know. And that's why we've put these questions into what I would call the Metropolitan Transportation Planning process, the long-range process of how do we get to that point within the next 3 to 5 years. I mean, I'm looking at this in terms of the short-term standpoint, because 10 years out, the census comes around, well, 8 years out, the census comes around again, and it may not include the Sanders and Smithville area. So I hope that answers your question as best as we can answer it at this point in time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Andrew?
Just ask another question. It looks like generally this work plan is very similar to past work programs. Are there any items of note that staff could identify where there are changes to prior plans?
I mean, the biggest change would be in element 501, 500, which is Bates page number 54. And this all involves Bloomington Transit. Sorry, just one moment, I'll be down there. I mean, two elements here. Starting work element number 501, which is on Bates page number 54, the complete streets set aside for safe and accessible transportation options, or SS4A, transit-oriented development. The SS4A, we had this in the current work program, but we've expanded it because the City of Bloomington Planning and Transportation Department is working through a process right now to become qualified for safe and accessible transportation grant through the Federal Highway Administration. That application would probably go in August of this calendar year. The other element there is transit-oriented development. Federal Transit Administration wanted Bloomington Transit and ourselves to plan transit-oriented development. Well, in Bloomington, it's actually different. I mean, the land is already there, and it's providing the routes to the land, and what they're asking for is us to provide routes so that way the land would develop. So we answered that as best we could in terms of transit-oriented development. Then the next part of that, well, yeah, and I'm sorry. Stop. I'm trying to get my mouse back here, I'm sorry. We also added in there the fact that Bloomington Transit will be conducting a number of studies. In fact, some of these are already underway with a phased implementation of the Bloomington Transit Route Optimization Study. And then that ties in with transit-oriented development. And then we'll also be working with the City of Bloomington, Indiana University, and NDOT to identify best practices for bicycle and pedestrian crossings, since the state of Indiana is identified as a focus state. In other words, we're under the microscope for bicycle and pedestrian safety. We will also support Bloomington Transit for their ongoing appraisal process for eventual land acquisition, for the relocation of the current administration and maintenance facility. So all of those are detailed out in the work program this year, and those are the key differences for the new fiscal year versus where we currently are right now. We're showing a continuation of the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, which we're already in, but that would end in hopefully in June of next year at the very latest. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions. Public comment on matters not included on the agenda. Okay.
Mention that indeed Safety Week is going to occur the first week of April with many activities throughout the area, and not only the involvement of our folks from the Long-Range Transportation Plan, but also the SS4A, which is Safe Streets for All. There will also be a lot of activities that they are promoting in the area, and it's really important that we engage the community as much as possible in trying to create the arena for safe transportation of whatever means for all people in our community, and it takes public comment to know where and when we need that to happen. So I hope everyone will not only come out, but also encourage all their friends, family, neighbors, everyone to be there. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Communications from committee members on matters not on the agenda. And we have upcoming meetings. The Policy Committee will meet on April 12th at 1:30, also hybrid. But I do want to say that we will need an in-person quorum at that meeting for the Unified Plan Working Program to be presented and voted on at that meeting. So if you can't attend, please let us know, let the staff know. We just want to make sure we have a quorum so we can meet the deadlines and keep that on schedule. The Technical Advisory Committee will meet on March 27th at 10 a.m., also hybrid, and Citizens Advisory Committee, March 27th at 5:30, also hybrid. And next item is adjournment.
Second.